Every single day, the gaming industry continues to lose more and more people. There are more layoffs now than there's ever been. In the last 2 years, we have over 40,000 layoffs in the gaming industry, and it is only continuing to climb. That is not even including subsector tech companies that have been laying off people that might have did work for some studios and whatnot. It is a bloodbath out there. Now, today, we are going to be talking about a particular studio that has made some video games that I've personally enjoyed, which is Eidos Montreal. Now, this particular studio is one of the studios that I actually think did pretty decent work, even considering that they're from Montreal, and we all know how certain studios from there tend to act. This studio really wasn't that bad. They are most famously known for Deus Ex Human Revolution, the Tomb Raider series, the Thief series, and they are clearly involved in some other projects that have completely flopped, like Marvel Avengers, for example, the upcoming Fable that nobody has heard from, and even Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy that I personally enjoyed, but I feel like got completely destroyed because of the bad faith that came from Marvel's Avengers. In today's video, we're going to talk about some recent announcement regarding Eidos Montreal and the fact that after just laying off a bunch of people not that long ago, they are officially firing even more people now, and they are confirming the cancellation of 2 projects, both of which I would actually look forward to had they actually released. So hit that like button, subscribe button, all that good YouTube algorithm stuff, and comment down below. Otherwise, YouTube's not going to let your view count. And well, that just sucks. That just sucks. Let's talk about Eidos Montreal. So this particular developer, as I mentioned earlier, just to give you guys a little bit of a history so we could catch up on all of this, they are the ones who were behind, either completely or partially, they were behind Deus Ex Human Revolution, which I personally enjoyed. It's probably one of my favorite Deus Ex games. We also have Tomb Raider, the initial reboot, which was basically supportive development for Crystal Dynamics, and they were all working under Square Enix at the time before they got bought out by the Embracer Group. They also made the Thief video game that I personally enjoyed. We also have Rise of the Tomb Raider, and again, I know how some people feel about the modern day Tomb Raiders, but I actually didn't dislike them. I actually liked the modern day Tomb Raiders for the most part. I thought Lara Croft was pretty decent overall, and they were basically Uncharted just with Lara Croft, but still, I actually enjoyed the games. I'm not gonna sit up here and pretend like I hated the game. And then, of course, in 2016, you have Deus Ex Mankind Divided, you have Shadow of the Tomb Raider in 2018, and this is when things started to get really bad. You have Marvel's Avengers in 2020, where they did supportive development with Crystal Dynamics and this own particular studio together, and was published by Square Enix. This particular video game is what started a massive downfall for Square Enix and also for Eidos Montreal. This game did so bad that it ended up just completely getting destroyed within 1 year's time. The game no longer exists from any kind of real, live service level like it tried to when it first released. Nobody liked this video game. And unfortunately, after that, a video game that I actually personally enjoyed, which was Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, that game released in 2021, and unfortunately, I believe that it didn't do as well because, quite frankly, people were very put off from the first Marvel's Avengers game from 2020, not even a year before this game came out. That game ended up putting such bad faith into people that they didn't even want to look at Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and those that did found out that it was actually a pretty good game for the most part. And now they haven't done a single damn thing since Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy because, well, the only game that they can confirm that they're actually working on with Playground Games is Fable, the 2026 supposed video game Fable that has been in complete development hell. Nobody knows what's going on with the game. We haven't seen or heard from the game in a long time. Last I remember, there was a trailer that was showcased, and I thought the trailer looked okay. I also think they changed the main character a little bit from whatever the hell they initially showcased at the beginning to what they showcased in the latest trailer. Now, granted, she's not exactly where I feel like she should be at, but still, ultimately, I feel like they definitely did change the character slightly, but I think it's too late. I think people have their minds made up regarding the upcoming Fable, if the game is even releasing. We honestly don't even know at this point. Now, here's the thing. Eidos Montreal just recently announced that they are going to be hit with more layoffs. It is absolutely destructive what is happening right now with Eidos Montreal. It says over at Insider Gaming, Eidos Montreal, the studio known for developing Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and supporting games like Tomb Raider and others, has had more layoffs, and over the last week, a number of now former employees have took to LinkedIn to announce that they were no longer with the company. One particular gameplay director, Samuel Daher, said, "Hey there, was working at Eidos, loved it and would have stayed, but times are difficult." In total, at least a dozen or more people are now looking for work. This is the second known wave of job cuts at the studio after 75 people were let go back in March. At the time, it was said that the layoffs were done due to mandates coming to an end. Now, you're probably thinking, geez, how many more layoffs are going to be happening? This is unbelievable. Well, apparently, they are already telling people that more are on the way. This is not the end of it, which I can't pretend like I'm surprised, but it's not the end of it. After those projects wrap up that they're working on with Microsoft, which right now, they're working on Grounded 2, and they're working on Fable. Fable obviously is unknown right now, and Grounded 2 is in early access. They're essentially saying that once those two games are wrapped up, there are going to be additional staff reductions that have already been forecasted for the company. So these people are working under certain conditions where they know that some of them are going to lose their jobs once this particular project is over. They're working on the project for now, but this is only, this is a finite amount of time. This is going to be the end for certain people. They just don't know who is going to be the end for. So now that we know this, I want to talk about the games that have been announced that have been canceled, because this is where it hits the worst for me personally. Okay, now when it comes to Eidos Montreal, you can think what you want to think about the studios. That's perfectly fine. Recently, there was a Legacy of Kain remaster that has come out that surprisingly did very well. It actually sold better than they ever forecasted that it would actually sell. But unfortunately, it didn't seem like it was enough. And what I'm about to talk to you about is probably going to piss you off as a gamer. It damn sure pissed me off, because I'm sick and tired of live service video games getting the decision in their favor above other single player games that most gamers probably would have preferred. What am I talking about? Well, apparently, with this recent round of layoffs, there has also been a revelation that they have canceled multiple video games, two in fact, that I would have been personally looking forward to. The first one is a rumored revival for Legacy of Kain, the series, according to the resumes of the former employees who got fired. According to the resumes via Cat Statue on Reddit and Real Redact on Twitter of Samuel Daher, gameplay director at Eidos Montreal, and Stuart Wheeler, associate design director at Eidos Montreal, the studio had some layoffs a week ago alongside the cancellation of several projects. Among the latter was a dark fantasy action role-playing game that was focused on reviving an established vampire IP, suggesting that it was likely planned as a revival of the Legacy of Kain series. Son of a bitch! And I gotta tell you guys, man, having the Legacy of Kain remasters remind me that, damn, I would love to see a modern version of Legacy of Kain. And I know what you're probably thinking. Do you really want to see a modern version of these older video games? Because chances are it could be completely messed up. And you're right. It could absolutely be completely messed up. But what if they didn't mess it up? What if they actually were able to do a good job with it? I think a Legacy of Kain, true modern Legacy of Kain, with good action combat, graphics, gameplay, story, everything, if they truly were able to properly revive the series, that would be an incredible thing. Truly, that would be an incredible thing to witness, and I would have been the first one there to support a really good remake or revival, whatever you want to call it. I would have been the first one to do so if it was actually good. Now, the other side of this is that there has been an announcement that there is another cancellation. It is not just a dark fantasy action role-playing game that was focused on that, but apparently it was also a sci-fi stealth game, which everybody is saying was possibly another Deus Ex game. Now, dude, I gotta be honest with you, I would love a new Deus Ex game, but to be quite frank, I just have completely forgotten about that IP. Not that it's not amazing, because I do have fun with it. I truly do, and I loved the Deus Ex games. However, I just have to admit that it's been such a long time that I've completely stopped caring. The last Deus Ex game that actually released was all the way back in 2016, and that was Mankind Divided, which was an okay game for the most part. But still, it's been a long time, guys. What is it? Almost 10 years at this point since we've gotten a Deus Ex game. So, you know, I would have loved to see a revival, of course. I would have loved to see a new version, of course. But at this point, I just don't think I would be, you know, very caring at this point. Also, keep in mind, guys, this is now them working with Xbox Studios. They no longer work with Square Enix. They are basically owned by the Embracer Group now. So and Square Enix ended up selling Eidos Montreal to the Embracer Group for very cheap. Embracer Group ended up buying this studio for around $300 million. That is extremely cheap. Nobody wanted to bid on this particular studio, and one of the main reasons why is because, quite frankly, they just weren't making money. Even though the Lara Croft games sold pretty decently, at the end of the day, they were extremely expensive to make, just a little bit too expensive to make, to the point where they just did, you know, at this point they just lost money from the sale flat out. And Square Enix was getting rid of their Western studios. That's when it basically started. They were getting rid of their European division, and that kind of went along with it. If you look at this screenshot here showcasing the earnings performance for Crystal Dynamics back in 2019, 2020, and 2021, you can clearly see that the revenue and the expenses are damn near the same. These companies were clearly not making that much money. Now, Eidos Montreal was making decent money in 2019, but unfortunately, the cost started to rise more and more and more until eventually they flatlined and it completely just died off. So of course they were going to get sold off. Square Enix was not going to want to stick with this company because, quite frankly, they just weren't making them money. They might have had established IPs. They might have had, you know, things that were popular within gamers, right? Between Deus Ex, even Lara Croft. Not so much maybe Thief. Thief is a little more niche because it's a stealth-oriented game, but still, it did fairly well. And people do like Thief, myself included. I think that they got it for a steal, and ultimately they were banking on the fact that they could make these Western video games into something really big from Square Enix, and they bought them out. And now, unfortunately, it seems like things are not looking good because they've gotten multiple failures left and right. And not only that, the development hell behind Fable is costing them an immense amount of money. I really don't know if Fable's going to come out. You guys can let me know in the comments down below, but I truly don't believe Fable is going to come out when they say it's going to come out. I think it's going to get pushed to 2027. I don't really think it's going to come out in 2026, but I guess time will tell. Now, here's where we get pissed, okay? Here's why I get pissed anyway. So, looking at this particular list, you're going to see list of canceled Eternal projects at Eidos Montreal. The dark fantasy action role-playing game focused on reviving the established vampire IP with a design emphasis on melee combat and parkour. A sci-fi stealth game, possibly a new Deus Ex game. But you know what they didn't cancel? You know what these sons of bitches decided to keep over a single-player experience like a Legacy of Kain revival and a Deus Ex game? You know what they decided to keep a 3v3 competitive esport game set in a futuristic universe. They decided to keep a game like this, a live service potential game, over a Legacy of Kain revival and a Deus Ex brand new game. Am I crazy or are they crazy? There's no way that you saw oh my, this is why like the corporate side of gaming truly just doesn't understand what gamers want. And I get it, man. They're looking at it from a dollar perspective. They're looking at a potential 3v3 esports style video game that will allow them to monetize and make money. But here's the truth. You guys are going to come out with a live service 3v3 game, and even if it does well in the beginning, it will be dead within a year, and then you will have regretted wasting all of this money like you have been wasting all of your money. I cannot believe they decided to keep this over the other two games. I really can't. And then there's a fourth game. It is a modern point-and-click role-playing game featuring turn-based combat, which that sounds really interesting to me. I would love to know what that is, but obviously we don't have all the information yet, so I'm really not sure. So when I look at this list and I talk and I'm like, are we serious right now? This is where the modern state of gaming is at, where you have studios that will absolutely decide to keep a live service game in production that probably has cost them more than the other two games development combined. They're going to keep that game in production instead of canceling that game and releasing the two games that gamers actually would have wanted to buy. Nobody fucking cares about another live service video game. It is sickening at this point. Meanwhile, you have two very interesting single player IPs that people would have loved to see make a return as long as it was done the right way, and you're completely abandoning that for a supposed 3v3 live service game. It's sickening at this point. It really is. It's very annoying. I'm over it. I think a lot of people are over it. A lot of people are tired of live service games. The games that are doing well as a live service game, they're going to have those players for a long time. There is very few other players around, which is why all these live service projects have completely been destroyed. You know, Sony canceled 8 out of 12 live service projects just in 1 year alone. 8 out of 12. It's ridiculous that they're even making 4. It's unbelievable. Everybody's trying to do the same thing at this point, and single-player, good narrative-driven video games are getting completely left in the dust for this live service slop that we're experiencing. Now, there are some good live service video games. Of course there is, but that doesn't mean that everything has to be a live service video game. Every time we see a breakout single-player game release, it always does gangbusters numbers. If it gets good word of mouth, it ends up being a fun game, and it's single-player, and it gives you a lot of hours played, and allows you to have a good narrative experience. Look at Expedition 33. $50, went on sale for $45 just 1 day after release to get some more people to buy the game, and before you know it, you got a massive amount of people buying your game, over 5 million copies sold, and now you're being voted on for Game of the Year, right? Is that going to happen all the time? No, but damn, man, can we get some good single-player games again? Now, here's some information about the 2 projects that they're currently working on before even more people get fired. This is 2 of the outsourced projects that Eidos Montreal is currently working on. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you have Grounded 2. They've been working on since 2023, and they've been involved in outsourcing work for Obsidian Entertainment survival action adventure game. And then you have Fable, that has a team of over 100 people that was involved in outsourcing work for Playground Games' upcoming action role-playing game from 2022 to early 2025, after which Microsoft didn't renew the contract. Internally described Fable as a simulation action role-playing game at Eidos Montreal. The engine that's being used for Fable is named Fuel, likely to be a variant of the Forza tech. Now, them actually labeling this game as a simulation action role-playing game, it's probably a good thing, because like previous Fables, you will be able to simulate certain aspects of real life. You know, getting a job, getting married, whatever. It'll be it's cool that they're at least looking to potentially carry that on. But I still believe this game is in development hell. I don't think the game is going to come out in 26, and I think they're absolutely going to announce a pushback at some point. Now, keep in mind, guys, like I mentioned briefly earlier in the video, the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remasters did release, and Embracer actually revealed that the Legacy of Kain remasters were performing much stronger in sales than they previously expected. It appeared that this would actually bode well for the potential future of the franchise. However, it didn't really do it. You know, it's unfortunate. It seems like the Legacy of Kain revival is not going to go as far as they probably thought it was going to, with the remasters being as successful as they were. So what does this mean? I mean, ultimately, this really comes down to the industry as a whole and their decisions, not even from a social standpoint, because we all know what they've been doing from a social standpoint. Everybody knows about it. We talk about it all the time. We laugh at it and we move on. But not just from a social standpoint. I feel like this proves that there is an insane level of mismanagement that is happening at these studios, and specifically Western studios. It is insane, the level of mismanagement, the overspending. It is unbelievable. Every single studio that I have seen that has closed down, I could look at their financials, I could look at the games that they release, and I could say, okay, well, perhaps maybe that wasn't the best idea. You can clearly see business decisions that are not exactly the best. And listen, I don't know everything. I'm not going to pretend to know anything, but goddamn, man, you cannot sit there and tell me that spending this much money on Lara Croft, for example, was worth it, right? You just can't tell me that. And surely Square Enix probably banked on these games doing such gangbusters numbers that they thought that investing so much money like that was going to make them have a return on their money. Well, they ended up not being true, right? These guys are spending way too much money. Even Square Enix, being a Japanese-oriented studio with a Western sector, spent too much money banking on these Western games and not being financially smart about it. Even if you look at Eidos Montreal before they were bought out by the Embracer Group and the decisions they decided to make when it comes to their other video games, it's happening all over the place, literally all over the place in the gaming industry. And I feel like this is the reason why, on top of the lack of subsidization in 2025, because we all know the money has run dry, I think that they have completely they need to look at their books again and say, you know what, maybe this is not smart. maybe we are spending too much money. Maybe spending $200-300 million on a AAA game is not exactly the smartest thing to do. Perhaps we need to go back to the books and figure out what we're going to do here. I really think that's what's truly hurting these studios, man. Bad business decisions, psychopathic developers and employees, and just an overall combination of a lot of different things that are shutting down studios that sometimes are making video games that I actually like, and they own IPs that I actually like. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I didn't like Lara Croft. I obviously am not going to say I didn't like Deus Ex. Obviously, I did. I even like Thief. Like, I like these games, and it's a shame that now 2 of those franchises are probably never going to see the light of day again, but we're going to somehow get Fable with whatever the hell this creature is. Again, I just... And in a live service 3v3 game, I can't help but be frustrated. I really can't help but be upset and just feel like you guys are so... You guys are just so stupid. I really don't know what else to say other than that. So in any case, guys, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about this announcement about the cancellation of potential Legacy of Kain revival in Deus Ex and other games as well? What do you think about them deciding to keep the 3v3 live service video game multiplayer shooter? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube algorithm stuff. Otherwise, your view is not going to count. And I will see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.